the secret sauce that makes this dynamic relationship between the client and the server possible is this mechanism called subcontract. And it's sort of like the real-life analogy of offloading work to a third party. You give a subcontract to somebody to get some work done. That's the same analogy that is being used here in the structure of the Spring network operating system. I mentioned earlier that the contract between the client and the server is established through the IDL, that is the interface description language used to create the contract between the client and the server. And the subcontract is the interface that is provided for realizing the ideal contract between the client and the server. So here is the ideal interface, and the client is using the server's ideal interface to make invocation calls in the server. And implementation of this ideal interface is accomplished through the subcontract mechanism. Put differently, subcontract is a mechanism to hide the runtime behavior of an object from the actual interface. For instance, there could be a singleton implementation of the server, or it could be a replicated implementation of the server. The client does not care and does not know. And all of the detail of how this client's ideal interface is satisfied is in the details of the subcontract itself. So what that means is the client side stub generation becomes very simple, because all of the details of where the server is, how to access the server, whether the server is on the same machine or in a different machine, and if there are multiple copies of the server, which copy of the server should I go to, all of those details are in the subcontract mechanism. That makes the life of client-side stub generation very, very simple. So subcontract lives under the covers of the ideal contract, and you can change the subcontract at any time. So for instance, if you don't like the work being done by one contractor, you give it to a different subcontract. Same sort of thing that can happen here is that the subcontract is something that you can discover and install at runtime. So in other words, you can dynamically load new subcontracts. For instance, if a singleton server got replicated, then you get a new subcontract that corresponds to this replicated service, so that now you can access the replicated service using the subcontract, and nothing needs to change above this line. The client stub doesn't have to do anything differently. All of the details are handled by this subcontract seamlessly. So in other words, you can seamlessly add functionality to existing services using the subcontract mechanism.